The Vatican Apostolic Archives, often still called the Vatican Secret Archives, are some of the most mysterious and restricted repositories on Earth. Housing over 50 miles of shelving and documents that span well over 12 centuries, they are largely closed off to the public. Only approved scholars may enter, and even then, only certain documents may be viewed. But what if some of those documents tell a story that contradicts the very core of Christian doctrine? Tonight, we explore the chilling whispers that hidden within those archives are texts and artifacts revealing that Lucifer was not only acknowledged by early factions of the Church, but once venerated. Let's open the shadowy vaults and begin. The name that changed everything. First, we must understand the evolution of the name Lucifer. In Latin, it means lightbringer or morning star. It was used in the Vulgate translation of Isaiah 14 verse 12 to refer to a fallen Babylonian king, not Satan. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? This passage was not originally about a devilish being, but later Christian tradition reinterpreted it as a reference to Satan's fall. Some ancient manuscripts suggest the early church may have considered Lucifer a symbol of knowledge, rebellion against ignorance, or even misunderstood divinity. If these ideas were ever formally discussed, where would they be recorded? That's where the Vatican archives come in. The Luciferian Gospels, fact or fiction? Whispers from fringe researchers and rejected Vatican scholars speak of apocryphal texts never seen by the public, sometimes referred to as the Luciferian Gospels. These alleged scrolls or codices, locked away in the archives, tell a radically different story, that Lucifer was once a bearer of enlightenment, a divine force cast out not for sin, but for challenging tyranny. In this version, his rebellion wasn't evil, it was a necessary act of cosmic balance. Are these simply distorted Gnostic texts? Or could early church factions, perhaps the Cathars or secret mystic sects, have passed on traditions of Lucifer as a misunderstood figure? Some Vatican archivists have hinted, off-record, of course, that these texts exist, but are considered too dangerous for spiritual clarity. Lucifer in early Christian art and writings. Art historians have long noted a curious fact. In early Christian mosaics and manuscripts, the imagery of angels and luminous beings is not always clearly divided into good and evil. In some early works, what appears to be Lucifer is shown with a radiant halo, wings, and regal garments. Some ancient sermons by church fathers like Origen and Tertullian mention Lucifer not as a name for Satan, but as a noble being who fell into error, not sin. These subtleties were later purged or reinterpreted by church orthodoxy. Could early Vatican councils have deliberately recast Lucifer's image to reinforce institutional control? Is there a theological skeleton in the Vatican's closet? The Cathars and forbidden doctrine. In the 12th and 13th centuries, the Cathars of southern France were branded as heretics and exterminated during the Albigensian Crusade. Their beliefs? That the material world was created by a corrupt being, often interpreted as the God of the Old Testament, and that the true divine realm lay beyond. Some documents recovered from Cathar communities speak of a lightbringer, who tried to free humanity from the prison of flesh and false law. Many scholars suspect the Vatican seized and archived Cathar texts during the Inquisition. If so, these documents could contain alternative views of Lucifer as a liberator rather than a villain. And where would those seized manuscripts be kept? In the secret archives. The Cathars and forbidden doctrine. In the 12th and 13th centuries, the Cathars of southern France were branded as heretics and exterminated during the Albigensian Crusade. Their beliefs? That the material world was created by a corrupt being, often interpreted as the God of the Old Testament, and that the true divine realm lay beyond. Some documents recovered from Cathar communities speak of a lightbringer, who tried to free humanity from the prison of flesh and false law. Many scholars suspect the Vatican seized and archived Cathar texts during the Inquisition. If so, these documents could contain alternative views of Lucifer as a liberator rather than a villain. And where would those seized manuscripts be kept? In the secret archives. Pope Sylvester II and forbidden knowledge. Pope Sylvester II, 999–1003, was a scholar, mathematician, and scientist who traveled to Islamic Spain and reportedly gained access to ancient arcane texts. He was accused posthumously of practicing sorcery and making a pact with the devil. His tomb was said to shake before the death of a pope, and rumors say his knowledge came from forbidden sources hidden even then in the early Vatican. Was he in contact with suppressed Luciferian teachings? The official Vatican biography of Sylvester II is sanitized. But older, rarer texts stored in the archives might tell a darker, stranger story. The modern church and linguistic manipulation. By the time of the King James Bible, the name Lucifer had become synonymous with Satan. But that translation decision is deeply debated among theologians. Critics argue that the Vatican allowed or encouraged this reinterpretation to consolidate moral control. By turning a name meaning light-bringer into the ultimate villain, they redefined the boundaries of obedience, rebellion, and authority. What if the most dangerous idea is not that Lucifer exists, but that his story was rewritten? The Jesuits silenced the Jesuits, the Vatican's elite intellectual and spiritual warriors, have long been rumored to safeguard the Church's most controversial knowledge. Their silence on certain matters speaks volumes. Some ex-members and fringe theologians claim the Jesuits are tasked with maintaining the Church's doctrinal purity by suppressing all references to Lucifer's alternative narratives. A few even suggest that deep within the Jesuit order, Lucifer is not hated, but studied. Is that why the archives are guarded so fiercely? A symbol reclaimed? In modern times, some occultists, Gnostic revivalists, and independent theologians have sought to reclaim the figure of Lucifer as a symbol of liberation, reason, and spiritual enlightenment. They are branded as heretics, lunatics, or worse. But what if they are closer to a forbidden truth? What if the Vatican fears that Lucifer, as an archetype, represents a spiritual awakening that could undermine institutional religion? Perhaps the greatest heresy of all is not to worship Lucifer, but to understand him. We may never know what lies sealed in the Vatican's most protected vaults. But we do know this: the Church has a long history of controlling narrative, scripture, and symbolism. Lucifer, as an idea, straddles a delicate line between myth and meaning, truth and taboo. And sometimes, when light is too bright, institutions choose to bury it in shadow. Perhaps the real secret is not that Lucifer was once venerated, but that he still is, in whispered prayers and hidden pages, deep beneath the Vatican. Thanks for watching Shadow Files. If this story made you question what truths lie buried in silence, hit subscribe and step deeper into the dark. Until next time, keep your eyes open, and your mind in the shadows.